Well, I want to thank everyone for gathering here today on Pai Street to talk about a real tragedy that occurred last weekend with rain that fell more than ever before in the past 30 years in a very short period of time. In this community, this neighborhood, this street felt the impact as many communities on the east southern side of the island, from Waimanalo, actually from Kailua, Waimanalo, Waikai, Aina Haina, almost all the way to Kahala. We want to thank our signer here for being here today to help translate Patty Sakal. And we're now taking action. I want to thank Governor Ige for stepping up and working with the City and County of Honolulu and with Trevor Ozawa and the representatives from the state legislature who represent this area to see what else we can do. Over the past couple days, the residents of this community have stepped up and helped each other. I was out here this morning, was moved by the stories of people walking across the street to help Grandma, as they call her, a 92-year-old woman who lives there by herself. And as the flood occurred, they went over to help her. And then they went to each other's neighbors to help each other. And that's what this community is about. You know, helping each other, and part of the community is the government. And what more can we do? There are things we can do. It involves some paperwork, and then it involves a lot of action. Before I go too far, I'm going to ask the governor to speak, and then I'll step back in. But I do want to let all of you know that on 1 o'clock this afternoon, after visiting out here and other places on this side of the island, I did sign an emergency declaration as the mayor of the City and County of Honolulu that will kick in some of the benefits that I'll describe. The governor, he takes action, it even helps more, and then we can go to the federal government and request, along with the island of Kauai, and our hearts really go out to the people of Kauai, particularly down on the north end of the island, and to Mayor Bernard Carvalho. And the governor and Mayor Bernard spent the entire weekend traveling that community. Our hearts go out to that community, but we also need to take care of our own here on Oahu, on this side of the island. So, Governor, if you'd like to say a few words, thank you so much.
Thank you. It is always inspiring to hear the stories of neighbors helping neighbors in times of disaster, and here on Oahu as well as across Kauai. It is heartwarming to see neighbors helping each other first and foremost. We are committed to helping with the cleanup. As the mayor had said, I had earlier issued an emergency proclamation for the county of Kauai. We have been in conversation throughout the weekend as the event and the situation occurred. We had been working together and thinking about what we can do to respond to this event. And we will continue to work with the mayors, Mayor Carvalho and Mayor Caldwell here to be able to restore normalcy to the community as quickly as we can. And we will continue to make the state's resources available to support the county action as we move forward. And so just wanted to thank the mayors, thank all of the emergency responders. I did want to start by saying that the emergency crews from the county and state Department of Transportation were working hand in hand during the event itself to monitor the roadways and worked as soon as it was safe to clear the streets and begin the cleanup activities so that traffic could be restored to East Honolulu. And then we focused on the rest of the recovery activities.
Thank you,
so
Governor.
Thank you very much.
Really appreciate it. I'm going to say a few words, and I'm going to ask the two area council members. You know, we have Ikaika Anderson, who represents the other side of the Ko'olaus, Waimanalo, and that community that was dramatically impacted, particularly farmers, and Trevor Ozawa, who represents the more urban side on this side of the Ko'olaus, to say a few words. Before we do, I do want to run through some things. Because of the emergency proclamation, there are things that we can do now to help this community. And we're going to have people talk about that. One is we can adjust real property taxes to some degree to help folks here. We can also waive permit fees to help folks as they rebuild. You know, these are not huge amounts of money, but it's things to help you. We're going to have our Division of Facility Maintenance picking up mud like this. And there's mud like this all around this community, placed on the sidewalks in many cases very neatly, and we have to pick it up, and we're going to be doing that. We have ENV, as you know, they pick up our Opala of all types, and we have one of the bulky item trucks here. They're going to be coming through starting today, and they're going to come back tomorrow, and then they're going to be back next week on the regular bulky item days to pick up the stuff that you put out, because you put some out and you continue to put more out. They also have put bins, as you know, down at the bottom of Hawaii Lower Ridge and at the Kiss and Ride in Hawaii Kai. And I've asked Lori Kahikina to see if she couldn't put a couple more bins out there. When we talked to homeowners today, they said they're so full they couldn't put more in. So we'll have 2 there, each of them, if we can. Yes, Lori? Yes. To get that done, and she'll talk about it. We're also going to be opening up 2 centers, one at Cocoa Head District Park next Tuesday and Thursday from noon until 8, where we'll have all kinds of agencies out there, from county to state to federal, from not-for-profits to NGOs to government agencies, to see what we can do to help this community. And then at Waimanalo District Park on Monday and Wednesday. At both of these parks, we'll be in the rec room or the multi-purpose room at both of these parks. We picked from noon until 8 for those who can do it while they're off from work during lunchtime. Those who may be in their communities can go in the afternoon, and then those who come home from work have until 8 o'clock to go and get information and help from these various entities that we provided. And you know, people like the Red Cross, and we have Coralie Mariyoshi here, has done an incredible job helping the city assess the damage. You know, part of the reason it took a while to do the declaration is we had to know what the damage was. And it has to be certain dollars amounts and certain number of homes affected. And it took some effort, and the Red Cross, the American Red Cross, helped us tremendously to do that. And many of the homes right here are on that list. But we're also looking at infrastructure, government infrastructure. We've now over $7 million of damage to storm drains and those kinds of things from this side of the island all the way wrapped around past Makapu'a and the Kailua. And the dollar amount is sufficient now that the federal government can step in and cover up to 80% of the repairs for that. And that's a good thing to have the federal government helping us too. And Governor Ige will be instrumental in getting the federal side to step up and help us. What I'd like to do now is ask a few people to come up and say a few words. And I think we start first with Trevor Roselle, the council member from this area where we're standing right now. Trevor.
Thank you, Mayor.
Yeah, thanks.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Governor Ige. Just wanted to say, first of all, to the people that live in this area, not only in Papai Street, but Aina Haina, New Valley, Kuli'o'o, Hawaii Kai, and everybody on the East Honolulu area. We're here with you, we're thinking about you, and we care about you. We will be with you every step of the way as we recover and we clean up. We're here. You know, as we walked around yesterday and I got to go into some of the homes, I just saw memories some of the memories are lost, and people's lifelong dreams and investments right here on this street have been deteriorated. And in a lot of ways, there's been a financial loss. But what I've seen actually is that the community has gained something, and the community has, gathered together. The community is rebuilding as we speak from day one. The stories that I've been hearing from neighbors, from my childhood friend here, Drew, who lives across or whose grandmother lives across the street. I want to thank him as well for really keeping me apprised of everything that's been happening from day one on this street. But just know that the city council, the city, the state, and the federal government are going to be here walking with you, keeping you informed, and apprising you of everything that we can do to help. So with that, please let us know what we can do to help. The mayor has indicated some of the things that we can do on a real-time basis, like removing this type of huge amount of mud and green waste and other things that are being put out on the sidewalks, like the mattresses and appliances. So rest assured that that's going to take place. Also, like you said, with the waiving the tipping fee of the crates, or excuse me, the containers that people have brought out. I know that some of you have paid for those containers personally, and we appreciate that. And thank you to the mayor for stepping up with those extra containers. It's going to actually make a big difference. So thank you very much. We're here to help, and we'll be there to help you rebuild.
So after the deluge of last weekend, Ikaika Anderson called me and said, Mayor, what are you going to do for our farmers? You think of Oahu as a place of 1 million people, and people don't think farmers. But there are incredible farmers both here in Hawaii Kai, like Ni'i Nursery folks, and on the other side, like Nalo Farms that have been heavily damaged. And we want to help our farmers and that community. And Ikaika steps up for all of them, and I want to thank him for being here. Ikaika Anderson, come say a few words.
Thank you, Mayor.
So much. Thank you.
Aloha. Many of our farmers lost everything during this weekend storm. And by everything, I mean their crops, their equipment, and some of them, even the fencing that gives them security around their property. And as I talked with my staff yesterday when we started our week, we asked ourselves, what can the city and county of Honolulu do immediately to provide the most benefits to our farmers who have lost so much in our community? And immediately we felt that we could provide some type of a break in the form of real property tax relief, Mayor. And because of that feeling, I am introducing legislation that will allow for a one-time deferral of real property taxes for those farmers in Waimanalo who are currently receiving an agricultural dedication from the City and County of Honolulu. I look forward to working with my colleagues on the council and with the Honolulu Mayor's Office, Mayor Caldwell, in providing this relief to our farming community. And I want to let our farmers know that we at Honolulu Hale, we hear you, we're with you, and we certainly are going to do everything possible to provide benefits to you so that you can rebuild and that you can get back to work and help to sustain our community. Furthermore, I would like to also extend my congratulations, if you will, to the people of this island who have really come together, like island people do, so many of us do, in helping our neighbors and our friends when they're in need. And oftentimes here, we don't wait for government to assist. We don't wait for other folks to come in and assist. We do it ourselves. And we saw that across Oahu, where communities came together and worked for the benefit of the community. I ask that people continue to do that, continue to support your fellow neighbors in need, and at the same time, rest assured that we in government are here to do everything that we can to assist you. We've got your back, Honolulu.
I'm going to ask Mel Kaku to say a few words. Before I do, some of you may ask, why aren't we opening up these centers this week? The reason is we have another major rain event coming. We don't want people out going to centers when they should be hunkering down and getting ready for the next storm. Hopefully it's not going to be as bad, but we should always plan for the worst and hope for the best. And so that's why we're delaying until next week to open up the centers. With that, I would like Mel Kaku to say a few words. Thanks, Mel.
Thank you, Mayor. Wanted to provide some details with regard to our disaster recovery centers, our DRCs, as they call them. So specifically for Waimanalo, the center is going to open on Monday and Wednesday, April 23rd and the 25th, 2 days. And for Cocoa Head District Park, it will be open on Tuesday and Thursday, April 24th and the 26th. This is to provide ample opportunity for people that are interested in obtaining information and dialoguing with our what we'll call subject matter experts on the various policies and opportunities. And again, this is trying to put together a group of agencies, both federal, state, and county agencies, as well as private industry, to provide information and assistance as necessary. So please encourage your neighbors, friends, businesses, take this opportunity and engage with the individuals that will be representing these various particular agencies. Thank you.
Thank you, Mel. Appreciate it. Hiro, do you want to talk about the next weather event? Do you have anything to add? No? Okay. We're going to be under a flood watch?
Flood watch.
Okay. Coralie Mariyoshi, you know, the Red Cross turned 100 years old last year. She doesn't look a year older than
Thanks a lot.
than 30. But we appreciate all you've done to get us to this point. And
Thank
say a
you.
few words.
We've been very busy actually running 2 disaster operations, one on Oahu and one on Kauai. And as you know, the situation on Kauai was really very dire. And we opened 5 shelters, one in which 61 were stranded for 2 days until the county helped us get them out by bus into another shelter. All the shelters are closed right now except for one at Kilauea Gym. The weather had hampered the ability of us to go to do disaster assessment on Kauai until yesterday. So, and some of the places are still cut off, like Wainiha and Haina. And so we're trying there as hard as we can. On Oahu, we started our disaster assessment this past weekend, and we were able to go door to door canvassing, getting disaster assessment figures for the county, as well as distributing cleanup kits. And we continue to do that. We're also distributing kits like this that are for floods. It helps people understand where they should seek insurance and other resources, how to muck out your house, how to prevent mildew and salvage furniture. And so we're going to be continuing to do that. We also sent 4 people from Oahu to help with the disaster operation on Kauai. One was a nurse, because a lot of people need medication refilled, mental health because it's such a trying time, someone for government relations, and the other one was to relieve the poor shelter worker that spent 2 nights in the Honolulu shelter. She finally got relief, and they said they wanted coffee, and they got it. Thanks.
Thank you. Really appreciate it. Ross Sasamura. Ross is always the boss. He's the guy who deals with the muck and the mud, and maybe you can share with folks what you're going to be doing.
Sure. Good afternoon. My name is Ross Sasamura. I'm the Director and Chief Engineer of the City and County of Honolulu, Department of Facility Maintenance. The impacts to the community here on Papai Street and other places in Aina Haina, Kuli'o'o, New Valley, Hawaii Kai, and Waimanalo are very clear when you travel through them and actually see some of the devastation that remains. We have to understand that all of what we see today is after 5 days of hard work put in by residents and other government agencies to restore passage through the streets. And there's still a lot more cleanup and a lot more work to be done. So in support of both the mayor's and the governor's proclamations or declarations today, the Department of Facility Maintenance is extending some services to help residents that are actually impacted by sludge, mud, sediment that's deposited within their properties. If they're able to bring them out to the street and to the extent possible, try to contain them in garbage bags, try to tie them up so that they can't be released back into the street where they'd have to be collected and scooped up again. We'll come by and actually pick up those bags of mud or sediment, as well as picking up any other large amounts of sediment, mud, or debris that we can for them. So the important thing is for us to understand where those collection points need to be. And I'd ask that any affected residents in these areas give us a call at 768-3600 to let us know exactly what you have that needs to be collected and where we can pick those items up. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Ross. Really appreciate it. Lori Kahikina, the Director of Environmental Services, who deals with picking up all the opala around the island.
Yes, okay. We will be using the list from the American Red Cross, so we're really appreciative of that. In order to use that, what we're going to use the list for is to do extra bulky pickup. The sector out here is normally collected on Mondays, but Mayor asked, can we get in here sooner? So we're going to start, actually right now our truck is right down the road, and we're going to continue Thursday, Friday as resources are available. And as I mentioned, Monday is the normal collection day. We usually have 2 crews in the area. I spoke to Fred Burgess, our supervisor right behind me, and he's trying to scramble up. He's the supervisor for the bulky crew in the Honolulu district, and he's trying to scramble up 8 crews for Monday, so hopefully we get some volunteers to work overtime for that. Mayor did ask that we put those 2 roll-off bins at Kawaikui and the city's park and ride. He called me earlier today and said that 1 is not enough, so we're scrambling to try by tomorrow, put 2 at each location. A resident did approach us right before we did this press conference that green waste, what do we do with the extra green waste? So as much as you can, put things in your green cart and put things in your gray cart if you have extra room. But we may consider putting another bin down at the 2 places for just green waste, because I understand it's piling up in your yards. We did speak to Ross Sasamura. If you need to, keep it separate though. Bring it to the sidewalk and keep the mud separate from the green waste, because it has to go to 2 different locations. Regarding your bulky, it needs to come to the sidewalk. You cannot leave it on your property. We're not, for liability purposes, able to go in, bring it out. As I mentioned, we're going to have the extra crews working, and of course we're not going to do violations during this period. We understand everyone's going to be offset. If I could, for the switch a little over to the sewer side, when you see a brown water advisory, please do not assume that there was a sewer spill. For this particular case, there was none. So our wastewater division is getting inundated with calls from this community to please come out and clean up the spill and disinfect. We cannot. It is not sewer related. And in light of the storm or the rains coming again, please, please do not open the manholes to drain your yards or drain the areas, because you exacerbate our sewer system, which is not designed to take that extra flow. What's going to happen is not only are you going to overwhelm our sewer lines, our treatment plants, our pump stations, it's going to back up into your homes. And so please don't drain. I know you're thinking you're helping yourself, but you're not. You're going to make it worse. If it's not going to be you, your neighbors, and now you're going to have sewers to clean up in your home. Mayor mentioned the tipping fee. So for those of you who have a private bin, we will waive that contractor that you hired. They need to contact us, let us know that this is from Hawaii or the storm related debris. We will waive that tipping fee. Hopefully he passes on that savings to you folks who have already purchased that. And I think that's it, Mayor.
Okay,
thank you.
Thank you so much. I do want to emphasize in the brown water, growing up in Hilo, we had a lot of brown water every time it rained hard. It's not polluted water in terms of sewage. It's Mother Nature cleaning out its streams and valleys. And in this case, it did overflow the canals and rivers and flooded into places like this. It's not sewage. We want to emphasize that to the extent that people are concerned about it. Also on the mud, as people in this area, there are people at swimming pools. It's not common in other parts of this island, but there are. And as they get the mud out of the bottom of the pool after they drain the water, please put it in a bag. Just bring it out in buckets and dump it here and let it slop down into the road and then into the storm drain. So we really do ask people to be cognizant of that. It'll make it easier for us and it'll make it better for our environment too.
Could I mention something about
Yes,
swimming pools? Okay.
please.
Sorry. One more thing with the swimming pools, as Mayor mentioned, as you're cleaning things up, and maybe Ross might have to come up to explain the proper way to dispose of that mud and that water. On the E&V side, when you have to go back and refill that swimming pool, I can't speak for Board of Water Supply, but we are the more expensive part of your water bill. So let's say you pay $1 per gallon from the water side, E&V is probably like $3 for that. We can waive that part of that. You just need to work with us. Let us know you're refilling your swimming pool, and we can waive that part of the sewer part of your water bill.
Okay, thank you, Laura. Appreciate it. And anyone feel free to jump in if we left something out. Robert Cronin, Director of Design and Construction, is going to talk about some of the infrastructure impact, public infrastructure from the storm this past weekend. Thanks, Robert.
Good afternoon, Robert Cronin, Director of the Department of Design and Construction. We have been out, my engineers in support and in conjunction with the Department of Facilities Maintenance, doing some damage assessment on the different public facilities, mainly the flood channels and stuff like that. So far, it's still in the initial stages. We've come across about 5 different locations in 3 general areas where there's been some significant damage to the channels. I'm going to look at my notes to say some of these names because they're not in most of them aren't in common areas, but one of them is Haione Channel in Hawaii Kai. Another one right up this valley, one of the tributaries along Wailupe Stream. And then there's a third general area. It's the Akiahala Channel in Kailua, where there's been some damage. Most of it's been to the concrete lining or walls along the side of the channels. We're conducting the assessments. Our initial estimates on the total, when you add all of that work up, it encompasses any of the design work that will need to be done, interim work, and then the permanent fixes afterwards, comes to about $7.3 million, which is what we'll be filling out the paperwork so that we can try to get some of that supported by the federal government. But as one of the first things we're doing is getting the consultants on board to work out some of the interim fixes. Probably use some shotcrete, gunite, maybe even some gabion bags to stabilize some of the walls in the places where it's significantly damaged, and then we'll work towards the permanent solution.
Thank you, Robert. Before we ask Kathy Sokogawa, who's the Director of Planning and Permitting, did want to emphasize one thing. You know, as Lori mentioned, bringing your Opala out to the curb instead of leaving it in your yard. When we walked around this morning, several neighbors were told by their insurance companies before they could dispose of it, the insurance company needed to take pictures of everything. So we don't want to go, even if we could go into a yard, we don't want to throw away things that people are saving for insurance reasons. So unfortunately, even though you may want us to cross the line, we don't want to take that risk and find out we've hurt people's claims. So it needs to be in the public right away. Try not to block the sidewalk if there's one, and try not to spill too far into the road. And as Lori keeps coming, well, she'll keep coming back until it's all picked up. So I wanted to thank you as much as you can to help us with that. Kathy Sokogawa, you want to talk about planning and permitting and what you're going to be doing?
Sure. Thank you very much, Mayor. We're very happy to help in this very sad times, but I do want to add a little bit of a personal story. The Mayor talked about this being a community that helps neighbors and each other, and I want to just say my friend, a dear friend, was trapped on Kalani Anaole Highway on Friday night. Water was pouring into her car. She was very concerned about her safety, so she pulled into the nearest carport and asked for help. And this is a stranger. They don't know her, she doesn't know them, but they welcomed her into her house that was flooding, and their entire, carpeting, everything in their house, all their things that were on the ground was damaged, but nevertheless, they insisted that they stay with her for 3 hours until they felt it was safe for her to go back out into her very destroyed car. So again, this is a community that not only helps neighbors, but helps virtual strangers. And so we're very grateful on behalf of that ethic that pervades in this community. Having said that, then, our department is already beginning to prime up for additional permit requests as a result of this event. Our laws allow us to streamline considerably the permit process. So not only will we forgive the permit fees, but you don't even have to turn in plans. So all you need to do is turn in an application with a short letter saying that you want to replace what was damaged due to the storm in a letter, not a restrictive covenant, not an affidavit, just a simple letter, and we'll process. The only thing that we will have to be very sure about is touching bases with federal flood hazard regulations. But other than that, we're going to it'll be a very pleasant, fast process.
Thank you, Kathy.
Thank you.
Really appreciate it. And on the real property side, we have Steve to go, and then we'll come back. Steve, thanks.
Just wanted to inform people with the mayor's emergency proclamation that allows for real property taxpayers to file for remission of taxes, real property taxes. So basically it's a program where the percentage of damage is applied to the assessed value and therefore the taxes. So we're going to be working closely with the Red Cross as far as to promote consistency and what they see, what we see just across the board, including the properties involved. We'll also be manning the centers next week as far as staff it for any other questions you may have as far as, but primarily focusing on the remission of taxes related to this natural disaster, or more specifically the flood damage.
Okay. Thank you, Steve. Thank you. Trevor Ozell reminded me to remind everyone that if you are draining your pools, don't drain it into the stream. That creates problems with the EPA as chlorinated water runs out into the ocean and debris. So please do not do that. You got to treat it carefully, and Lori talked about that a bit.
Please don't put it in sewers.
And don't put it into sewer system either. You're going to cause major problems. So that's a request. We're going to open up the questions on this issue. If there are other issues not related to the flood damage, we'll do stand-asides. And we'll ask everyone to stick around just for individual interviews. We'll open up some questions, but before we do that, I thought we'd ask the governor to just summarize everything. Again, the city can do a declaration, but what makes it have a lot more power is when the state does a declaration with it, because then it opens the door to the federal government and a lot more things, streamlines a lot of processes. And so it was critical that the governor step up with the city and county of Honolulu, and he did. And I thought maybe we could wrap up and then we'll open up to questions.
Yeah, thank you. Just want you to know, as the mayor has issued his disaster declaration, we will be looking and expanding the declaration already issued for the county of Kauai to include the county of Oahu in that declaration. As part of that, what we already have in process, we have assessors on the state side and representing FEMA going out to assess damage again. That's part of the required process from the federal government. As soon as we hit that threshold, we've already been in contact with the White House in preparation of requesting a presidential disaster declaration. So once the assessments by FEMA and the state are completed, we will process the request for a presidential disaster declaration for the county of Kauai and the county of Oahu. So certainly that will allow us to respond and initiate actions for recovery and repair as quickly as possible.
Thank you,
so
Governor.
with that,
really
we'll
appreciate it. Thanks. So on questions, members of the press, if it's okay, I know there's a lot of community and they had a lot of questions for me, and I'm sure, Trevor, they had questions for you when you're here. We will stick around and we can answer your individual questions, and of course you know the different entities here. If you have a specific one for Lori or Robert, seek them out. But we don't want to have this press conference go too much longer in terms of getting information out to the community as a whole. So questions from members of the press?
For the governor, a conference committee has just passed the $100 million aid for the state and $25 million for the rest of the state, including this area. Would you be supporting this legislation?
Well, we've already, through executive action, forwarded money for repairs. We're working with the Federal Highways Department. They have a disaster recovery program as well. Certainly, the resource is not the issue at this point. We will be responding. We will be committed to making the repairs required to provide access to the community. And clearly, any additional resources would be accepted as well. But
and what about
certainly, by the time the legislature gets done, we'll be very, very far along to actually taking action and implementing repairs because we do have executive authority.
And also, one final question from me, and that is for homeowners who don't have insurance, will there be any assistance for those homeowners?
You know, we continue to work. One of the things the mayor has talked about is we will have state experts at the resource centers, again, that they can answer those more specific questions that are particular to a specific homeowner.
But to add to that, part of the reason for doing a declaration with the governor, it does open up the SBA to come out and help. And they can make small loans, both to homeowners and to businesses. It's not going to make the big difference, but it makes a difference. And then FEMA, which is already in Kauai, can now come over here with the governor's declaration.
Right.
They can also provide support. But yeah, those who, I mean, in some ways we wish we all had flood insurance. It's very expensive, but we met a couple that did, and FEMA's already shown up at their places and are stepping up. Those who don't, you know, have some huge hurdles in terms of financial challenges, and to the extent we can help through SBA or FEMA, we're going to be doing that. And these waivers that the rest of us talked about.
Mayor, could you go over the damage again, how much money the damage has been?
So, you know, to public infrastructure, we're getting a more accurate count. That's about 7.3 million, as Robert Croning has talked about. I expect it's probably going to go up. You know, these are preliminary estimates looking at places where we know there's damage. On the private property, it's harder. I mean, you look at the folks right here, they're now assessing that damage. We do know from the Red Cross that 3 homes were destroyed and another, what, 29 was it? 26 major damage. And you add that all up, it can become significant. But I wouldn't want to estimate how many millions of dollars that is. That's something we're going to be working with this community. And as these centers are opened up, people will be coming in and they'll start assessing that dollar amount. And we're more than happy to share it with you when we have it.
So besides the 3 homes destroyed and the 26 major damage, does anybody have even a ballpark fix on how many homes were affected by some kind of damage?
We do for Oahu. And
I think there's about 163 homes that were damaged, 3 destroyed in Kuli'o'o, 26 major damage, 17 of which were in New Valley, 96 with minor damage, but that's up to 18 inches of water, and 38 affected, and then 4 remain inaccessible.
Mayor Caldwell, I have a question about the public infrastructure. You mentioned damage to stream beds. Do we know about any damage to roads or public facilities?
You know, maybe Robert, you can answer that, but as far as I'm aware, it's more the culverts and stream beds and not public highways, at least the city ones, and I don't know if the governor want to jump in on that. Yeah.
As far as the application for funds to fix these broken canals or whatever they are, is there any thought to capacity, if the issue is capacity, knowing now, you know, given what happened this past weekend?
Well, you know, driving around today, and we looked at some of the canals just down from here, and there's one where 2 kind of smaller canals merge with one large one. I asked Ross Sasamura who's right over here, you know, what could we do to increase capacity? And he said, well, one thing you do is you're going to have to condemn a lot of homes on both sides of the canal because it's a very dense area here. People live right up to the edge of streams and canals, including right here. And if we built it to the capacity to handle a 30 or a 50 or even 100-year flood, I mean, one thing I think is evident to all of us is global warming is for real. You know, Trevor and I were in Washington, D.C. The week before I got there, it was 85 degrees. We arrived, it was 64. It dropped to the 30s and then jumped up to the 60s. I mean, weather around the globe is erratic. Doesn't mean it's just always colder or warmer. And we're seeing these kind of events happening at a more regular rate, both on Kauai and this island and other islands. And but to build now to that, many people will be impacted and the cost will be tremendous. It's a discussion we have to have, but it's not an easy answer to your question. Okay.
We heard from the residents at this morning's budget committee hearing some concerns raised about the channels and the streams and whether or not there had been enough cleaning done to ease the situation. I know Ross had addressed that issue on Monday, but based on what we heard this morning, anything else to add?
You want to add?
Could more have been done?
But at this point, from what we know of the situation and what occurred, the cleaning and the maintenance that we perform on a regular basis was sufficient to sustain flows. The issue here that we're facing is one of a heavier amount of flow than what was actually able to be carried by the drainage infrastructure that's here. So as Mayor Caldwell stated, if we were to build for the worst case, there's going to have to be some very large expansions of the entire drainage network. If we're talking about impacts from global warming and sea level rise, then all of those things need to be taken into consideration, and it's not something that we're going to be able to come to a conclusion on or decision on in the next couple of years. It's going to require some more studies.
But isn't it true that, you know, even 50 years ago we found some clips showing concerns raised by residents of the Aina Haina area then about stream dangers and whatnot?
Right.
I mean,
and then we also faced the 1987 New Year's Eve flood that actually impacted the same areas. And from that, there were 2 recommendations that were made with respect to the construction of boulder basins at the head end of some of these drainage infrastructure. And those construction projects were completed, and in my opinion, those projects that were completed actually averted some more serious damage that could have occurred.
Gordon, one thing, and I have a request to everyone who lives along a stream or a culvert, don't use it as your dumping site. I mean, people do take, if you live right along it, some people just dump it in there thinking the rain will wash it away. Well, it may wash it away, but it's not a major event. But when you have the flushing that occurred, you know, almost 5 inches falling within hours, it flushed everything down, including debris that's way in the back of the valley that no one can get to, but it comes down and gets lodged in these bridges. Like the one over here is probably why this house and this community was impacted. It just backed up and found a new way to go. So, you know, some of that is a request is please, you know, bag your stuff and have Lori take it away as green waste. Don't dump it into the stream.
Did the city do its job in keeping those canals and streams clear up to this point?
I believe to the best of their ability. You know, every time we have one of these events, I call Ross, I call Lori. Ask Lori, button down the hatches, all pipes are attached, no problems, no spills. Ross, have you gone out? They go out. And they clear in areas where they can access, like coming over by the highways and bridges, and they'll remove debris. But again, as I say, they're not going into the very back of the valley to clean streams from, you know, from the back to the front. And nature has a way of flushing things out in major storms, and that's what occurs. But I do believe they've done the job they've set out to do in the best way possible.
Governor Ige, you mentioned a FEMA assessment. Can you
Sure.
speak a little bit about what assessments the state is doing on Kauai to sort of assess the damage over there?
Well, we do have a team of a state assessor and someone representing FEMA. The process requires the cities to do their assessments, and they accumulate the damage. It has to exceed the threshold. It's per capita threshold, so the threshold on Kauai is significantly less than the threshold on Oahu. I believe that the FEMA threshold on Oahu is 3.5 million, which, as you heard the mayor, we already know that threshold has been surpassed. And certainly, so the state assessor and the FEMA assessor will review the information provided by the county and complete their report that goes into my disaster declaration request that I send on to the president for his authorization.
Okay, so it's first on the county to do
Then,
the assessment.
right, and we are doing the state and federal assessment together so we can reduce the time it takes to do the assessment so that we can get the declaration request to the president as quickly as possible.
And Governor, we did talk to Mayor Carvalho, and we had asked about the integrity of the dams and the reservoirs. You went
Yes.
up in the helicopter with him. Anything more you can share about that?
We do have a team from DLNR that have been monitoring all of the dams and reservoirs on Kauai throughout the weekend, beginning on actually Friday and working through the weekend. They were taking pictures, they were monitoring the levels. We do believe that all of the dams and reservoirs on Kauai are safe. We still have people monitoring. As the mayor said, the National Weather Service says that there is another storm coming through that will be here on Thursday and Friday. We certainly are hoping that the storm passes us by and we don't get the kind of event that we had last weekend. But once again, we are prepared. We have personnel online that are monitoring the levels in all of those waterways, the stream levels, the reservoirs and dam levels throughout the weekend, and will continue to be vigilant. We did have an evacuation when we thought that one of the reservoirs would be breached. We continue to work with the mayor and the county to make sure that we have the best information and that we can inform the residents. Safety, health and safety is always the first and foremost priority. We will continue to work with the mayors and the counties to inform the public as appropriate.
Okay, any other questions? Otherwise, we'll remain around for individual questions. If guys,
Mayor,
can you all
could
stay?
just show them that this is the remission of taxes.
Okay,
in
do you
case
want
of
to?
natural disasters.
You want to?
Just if you can explain it.
Explain this.
It's
Just
a simple-
real quick, and then we'll wrap it up.
Getting back to the remission of real property taxes for those affected. So basically, it's a one-pager. It can be found on our website, realpropertyhonolulu.com. We have it in the form section, but as I was coming here and parked, I called our office and I had them posted in the What's New section of our website. So basically, it's a simple one-pager, basically identifying the property, who you are, and a description of a whole area to describe what happened to your property as far as the damage.
And it's important for them to get that in before June 30th.
Actually, I
Or
think
within 60
I think
days.
yeah.
Whatever one is later.
Yeah.
So June 30th. Right?
Correct.
So June 30th. Please get it back to us before June 30th.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're gonna. I mean, we'll stand around. And if you have individual questions for our guys, come up and ask. I just don't want to keep these guys here forever standing in the sun, and my ball of head is getting red. But no, I would like to. We are going to have our bulky item truck coming through. It's right down there, and they'll start picking up Opala as it does. And if